Welcome back to the guitar lesson. Sort of a continuation from last week. We left off on intervals and numbers. I'm going to focus more on intervals now. Hopefully you remember what steps are. Steps are, a whole step is 2 frets, a half step is 1 fret. Or notes. A fret is a note, right? So review last week's lesson if you don't have that all, because it's really important to understand last week's before we move on to this one. So intervals. I'm going to go back to the C major scale that I showed you last week, and I'm going to break that down into intervals. So we're going to start on the C note with the index finger. And an interval is pretty much the distance between 2 notes. So this is note number 1, and note number 2, and note number 3, and so on and so forth, all the way up to the 8th note, which is sort of like the same as the first note because it's an octave, and then the next octave is the 16th note, and then the 24th. So here's 2 notes. That's known as a second interval. And if I don't specify major or minor, just like with chords, it's major. Now a minor second is just going to be flatting that major second by a half step, or just 1 note. So instead of this, the distance between those 2 notes is a minor second. And then here's a second. Here's a minor. We'll play the third interval first. So here's the third interval. And then the minor third, just like the second, I just had to flatten it by half a step. So here's the major third again. Minor third. It's a minor third interval. So if I go all the way up and down the C major scale, or any major scale, this is a C major because the root note is a C note. So we've got the second interval, third interval, fourth. Actually, it's a perfect fourth, and perfect 5. The 4th and the 5th are always perfect. The rest of them aren't, because you can play on either major or minor. And the 6th, the 7th, and then octave. So those are the intervals, without flattening them or sharpening them. Now, if you think about the scale of numbers like we did last week, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then repeato, you've got your intervals are spelled out between 1 through 7 and 8 and so on and so forth as you go higher and higher. Remember, number 9 is going to be an octave of the second, 10 an octave of the third. Now if I go up the scale again with all of the notes, not just the notes that are in the scale, but all the between notes, the accidentals, the sharps and the flats and all that, it's going to look like this. Here's the minor second again, interval, second interval, minor third, third interval. And remember from last week, I decipher a minor from a major as that third interval. If it's going to be minor or major, it's that third. Perfect fourth. Now this weird note that's in between the perfect 4 and the perfect 5, this one, that could be, you could call that either a flat 5 because it's just a half step flat of 5, or you could call it a sharp 4 or an augmented 4. Either way it works, but this is, most people refer to it as a flat 5, so we'll just call it a flat 5 interval. And the perfect 5, the flat 6, which is going to be a minor 6 interval, 6, which is a 6 interval, and that 7th tone of the scale, I'm sorry, that wasn't the 7th, that was a perfect 4, this is the 7. It's a minor 7 because it's a half step flat of the 7, and here's the 7. Minor 7, and major 7. And the next note up is the octave. So it's sort of a unison note. And that's intervals for you. Let's look at the A minor scale, the natural scale. By the way, the name of the scale that I'm showing you here is the natural scale. It can be major or minor, the same scale that I showed you last week. We're just starting at a different place in the natural scale, which is what determines if it's major or minor, and that third tone, obviously. The third tone is the big deciding factor if it's major or minor. If that third tone is a major third interval or a minor third interval. So with the A scale, if you continue to think about these scales in numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, octave. Remember the formula that I gave you with the steps? It's pick a starting note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's the formula. So sticking to that formula, let's say you didn't know the A minor scale and I didn't show it to you last week, but you know steps and more importantly, you know intervals. I could give you the formula for this. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 an octave, it's going to be 1, 2. By the way, I'm starting on the A note for the A minor. It's going to be 1, 2, flat third, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, octave, and then it just repeats up to next everything is in octaves. So instead of, well, we'll start at the same point, the A note here. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 octave, it's, to make it minor, 1, 2, flat third, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, octave. And if you understand those intervals, that numbering system, I can give you the formula for any scale and you can play it, even if you don't know the scale. If I give you that formula, the formula being, gosh, I could give it to you in steps, like whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. Or I could just give it to you in those intervals if you think of a scale in numbers, which I hope you start doing because it's a lot easier to figure out that way in my opinion. So if I give you 1, 2, flat third, you know exactly what to play. You know that starting on the A note, 1, 2, 3 is that, right? If I say 1, 2, 3, flat third, then you know to play 1, 2. Instead of this third, you're going to play a flat third interval. And then 4, 5, flat 6. Instead of a 4, 5, 6, you're playing a 4, 5, flat 6. And last but not least, flat 7, 8. So instead of 7, 8, flat 7, 8. So if I wanted to make up something goofy, like, I don't know, 1, flat 2, 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 6, 6, 7, root. And I just made that up off the top of my head. If that scale exists somewhere in some third world culture that we're not familiar with, who knows? It could be, but anyway, as long as you know intervals, you can learn any scale and you can learn anything in music, which is pretty exciting. So know those intervals, know what steps are, and that'll aid you in the learning process here forward, or in any learning process in music. Just knowing intervals will help you a great deal in the learning process. Learning won't be as frustrating. So know those intervals. More chords. I haven't shown you B or B minor. We'll start with B. It sounds like this. So to play this, we're going to bar one of our fingers. Our ring finger is going to be barred. Now we're going to take our index finger and place it on the 5th string, 2nd fret. That's the B note, that's the root note here. And then we're going to bar the ring finger across these notes. It's on the 4th fret. And that's spanning, let's see, the 4th fret, spanning string numbers 2, 3, and 4. So it sounds like that. So get them all to sound out nicely, just as we have done on other chords. And to make this minor, just one note is going to change, but the finger is going to be different. We're not going to be barring anything, so it's easier to play in my opinion. So keep your index finger where it's at, lift up your ring finger, and place your ring finger in an arch like you normally do when you fret chords or fret anything. But the note that you're going to sound is still going to be the same note as it was before. You're just not going to bar it. It's going to be the 4th string, 4th fret. So we've got this so far. Now take your pinky, place it on the 3rd string, 4th fret. So we've got this so far. And your middle finger is going to go on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. So we've got this. You only want those middle 4 strings to make sound. So make sure that the 6th and the 1st strings are muted, they're not making any sound. Just get the 4 middle ones to sound and make sure that they're all sounding. Your fingers are arched. That's it. B major and B minor. There you go. Now I'm going to show you a chord strum. This is really the first chord strumming pattern that I've shown you, and I hope you like it. I'll even make it somewhat musical, but I'm also going to start to open up your creativity at this point, so don't get scared. Be excited. Alright, the pattern that I'm going to show you, we'll stick with B minor for now, just because we just learned it. The pattern for this chord strumming is going to be down, down, up, down, down. Just like that, and you just repeat. So down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down. And for this purpose, just keep your wrist somewhat loose. Don't stiffen it up. You want it to be kind of loose. And it's the kind of strumming that sounds good fast or slow, but don't play it any faster than you can accurately play it. You'll get faster as you get better at it. This is brand new, so start slow. In fact, do this with the metronome. I'm going to turn mine on, and I'll turn it on at a slow speed, so that possibly you might be able to play with me. What speed shall I set it at? I'm going to set it at 80. It's a nice rounded number. So it's the rhythm is going to be like this. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, with the metronome. Down, up, down, down. This is where you're going to get creative. Start incorporating that strumming pattern into all the different chords that you've learned. So I'm just going to make something up off the top of my head, something simple. I'm going to use, let's see, I use C, I might use E, might use E minor, I use G, and I'll use D. I might even throw a B chord in there since we just learned it, but eventually work every chord that I've ever taught you into this, which would cover A minor, B minor, C, I've still got to show you C minor, D minor, E minor, F minor. And when you get to something that you like, write it down on a sheet of paper. Write down what transitions you like. If you like the way something sounds when you go from G to C or D to E, or if you like a transition that involves 3 chords or 4 chords, or something that repeats itself, just write it down and get musical with it. So here goes. Here's an idea of what I mean. Something like that. You can toy with that all you want. Spend as much time as you want on it. This is something that's really going to help continue to toughen your fingers and improve on your chords. And it's even going to start to exercise a little creativity in your brain, which is also going to help your guitar playing, obviously, as well as your creativity. So don't shy from being creative, even if you're not that good yet. You can learn how to be creative at the same time as you're learning how to do everything else, and they will both complement each other, so go with it. And that concludes, let me make sure. Yes, that is it. That concludes today's lesson. Hope you look forward to the next one.